even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
I'd like to introduce Daishin McCabe, whom I think all of you know him. He's been on our board for 3 years now. This is his 3rd year, and he'll be leaving the board and be replaced by Jisho Siebert, hopefully, if we elect her today. And Daishin first came to Zen as a university student at Bucknell in Pennsylvania, where he met his teacher, my old friend Diane Benage. He spent 15 years practicing with her, which means he has a really top-notch foundation in Dharma. And has now been for, how many years have you been in Ames?
Now, almost, I think it's 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And is leading half-day sittings at Pure Land of Iowa, in Des Moines, and also a little sitting group in Ames, yes?
We have started, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's Daishin. Thank you
for
coming.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm going to add too that we invited Zuiko to the Pure Land to offer a half day, or to be the lead teacher for a half day of Zazen, or half day of Zen in June, the beginning of June. So we're looking forward to you coming.
And Daishin leads sessions here, and do join his sessions. They have yoga in the afternoon.
Thank you so much for this warm introduction. Yeah, I see most faces are familiar, and then there's a couple of folks I don't know if I've met all of you before, but I feel very warmly welcome. Thank you very much. So, these are some questions I think you've been thinking about, but I want to put them out there. What is a teacher? Why do we need one? And how do you find a successor to your present teacher? Those are, I think, questions that this Sangha has been kind of mulling over the past year or so. And this is a very challenging time, I think, for your community. And I believe that you and Zuiko are undertaking this journey with incredible maturity and foresight. Making the transition from one generation to the next has been fraught with difficulties for many sanghas in the United States and in Europe. The fact that you're taking the time to do this now, well before Zuiko departs, indicates your wisdom. So, pose to you a question: how do you feel about having another teacher?
Hungry. I guess I have a little nervousness about it. Not in a bad way necessarily, but I think we're all very comfortable. So we know her. We love her. We care about each other here and everything. And so I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge maybe to find a good personality match too, not just as a teacher, but somebody who, we feel really comfortable just calling up on the phone and saying, I have some questions, or I would like to talk something over. So those are some of the things I've been thinking about.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's really honest. I think it's normal to feel a little bit nervous about this. I mean, like you mentioned, Zuiko, you've gotten to know her for, what, at least a decade? And
almost 20 years.
20 years, my goodness. So, yeah, and then have to work with a change, a shift to a brand new person. I would be nervous. Yeah. Any other feelings that have arisen in your...
I think it's kind of a mixed bag. When we talk about, who the teacher could be and what kind of experience that they would have and what kind of things that they could be interested in, it's really exciting. At the same time, I have a stepmother who's a pastor, and I've seen pastors switching out in and out of Christian churches and whatever. And I say, and so in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this could go so bad. We have to be so careful to do this right.
Right. Yeah, and again, I think you are doing it right just by what you've been doing over the past over a year now. So yeah. Any other thoughts about it?
I'm a little anxious as well, just because I spend so much time here, and I want to, I'll certainly continue. Zuiko will always be my teacher, so I'll always be there supporting her. But just to know, I'll need to have a good connection with the next one too, so that I can help them along as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I hear is some a little bit of excitement in a positive way, a little bit of anxiety in a positive way, but it also could go either direction. You're aware of that this transition. And also, maybe you make many comparisons. Once you find a teacher, maybe you find yourself making lots of comparisons between, well, that's not the way Zuiko did it. And maybe you'll feel like you don't want to come back because you don't agree with what the other teacher has to say. Those are all kind of legitimate things that have happened in communities. So just let's see. So it's important to recognize how you're feeling with all of this, and it's natural to feel a lot of discomfort, I think. But even this discomfort is our practice. It's our practice to work with feelings of discomfort. Our practice is to create ABC. So we do the ABCs here. A bigger container. So making ourselves into a bigger container to work with, to incorporate not just the good things about life. I mean, we want to include those too, to see more of the beauty of life, but also to include more of the things that maybe we don't like so much, our preferences, things we like and dislike. And also to notice there's a correlation between the degree that we can see beauty and the degree that we can see suffering. So that those two go hand in hand. Some points to consider with this transition. So please keep in mind that the teacher is only a representative for the Dharma. Love the Dharma, not the teacher. Love the Dharma, not the teacher. Come for the Dharma, not for the teacher. Here's a quote I found online. I was talking to a Zen master the other day, and he said, "You shall be my disciple." I looked at him and said, "Who was Buddha's teacher?" He looked at me in a very odd way for a moment, and then he burst into laughter and handed me a piece of clover. That's a quote by Alan Watts. So, you are all Buddhas. Are you any different? Who is your true teacher? Who is your true teacher? It's something to think about. Well, I mean, what would you say? Who is your true teacher? Other people.
Life. Experience.
Experience.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. I think you're right on there. Really. The role of the teacher in Asia has often been one of a guru-ship model. You know what I mean? Right? And this model, while I think it's well-intentioned, has not worked very well in America or Europe for the most part. It hasn't worked very well. There have been too many abuses of power in those relationships. So we need to learn to see our teachers differently from the guru model in this cultural context, I think. And teachers also need to understand this cultural context as well. So they need to recognize how much power they actually wield and be aware of how much pain abuse of that power creates. Right? I think that's an important attribute of any teacher. And you have a teacher right now. I think that's well aware of these things. So I came across a cartoon image of a teacher and student both sitting in meditation, and the teacher looking quite disappointed at the student and saying, "I don't care if it's pointless. You're still in timeout." So I think one quality a teacher needs to have is humility. They need to be able to share their own imperfections as opposed to simply telling you what's right and what's wrong. I mean, I don't think any of us really value that anyways, even if we are doing things wrong. Just being told that isn't really valued. And as you all know, teachers are not enlightened Buddhas. You know, we're human beings, and teachers are going to make mistakes. And the problem is not the mistakes as much as the inability to recognize them when they happen. So however, it's normal for new students to Zen to see the teacher as a kind of perfect Buddha or God. That's often. I mean, that's certainly how I kind of encountered my teachers. Like, whoa, yeah. It's also important to keep the new students' enthusiasm for the practice, for the Dharma, alive. So there's a kind of delicate situation when somebody new comes into a practice center. So being sensitive to the needs of those who enter the Zen center is especially important for those who have been around a while, like yourselves. Any new teacher and student is going to need your support, right? So having that sensitivity for new people, like they may be thinking all kinds of things, and you've been around a while, and you're seasoned practitioners. So to support your new teacher, and well, actually, you can do this right now. You don't have to wait for a new teacher.
Yes. To support your old teacher.
You're right, your old teacher, absolutely. So, what did the Buddha look for when he found his successor? So the first thing I'm mentioning is one important quality of a teacher is humility. But what did the Buddha look for? We can probably find a lot of different things, but I'm going to use an example from the Denko Roku, the transmission of light. This is just very briefly. The first ancestor was the Venerable Makakasho. When the world-honored one held up the Undambara flower and blinked his eyes, Makakasho smiled faintly. So that word for a faint smile in Japanese is misho, a faint smile. So what this tells me, how I understand this, is that maybe, or asking the question, can your teacher be both deeply grounded as well as lighthearted, like Makakasho? So Makakasho is known for his ascetic practices. All right, so he was, I would say, probably very grounded, deeply grounded human being. At the same time, he was able to break out into a smile, and so to have that the lightness too. So there are many possibilities for what a teacher can be, and I'm sure you'll investigate. You've been investigating that, but I think the three foundational ones maybe are humility, groundedness, and lightheartedness. This is a foundation. So the next question I want to ask is, why do we need a teacher? Why do we need a teacher? And, what would you say about that?
To keep us on track, lest we lose the path.
Keep you on track?
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just wandering around in the wilderness by yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
I think the Dharma transmission is really important. When I study on my own, or whether I'm just looking stuff up on the internet or reading a Zen book or something, sometimes I feel like I need some wisdom and guidance with that, because it can be very, well, I think Buddhism in general, it's a complicated philosophy in some ways. There's simplicity to it, of course, that I think appeals to all of us, and it's really wonderful. But, you can get some really deep thought about the nature of reality and, your position in the world. And so I think it's one of the values of having a teacher is just helping you navigate through all of the different aspects of the Dharma, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Right. For sure. Yeah, we can find all kinds of things on the internet, and how do we make sense of this in reality? And having a human being there to kind of, who has studied it and practiced it and has been herself with another teacher to ask those same questions, really important. Yeah, that transmission.
It's a connection just to the broader Zen community.
Oh, right, yeah.
Just the resources, and just that's huge.
I think they make a really good point. Yeah, to have a connection to the broader Zen community. Otherwise, our community is just this little isolated bubble. Or if we don't have a community, we're really isolated bubbles looking on the internet. I mean, I just think about how many people do that actually, and feel like, that may feel like that's enough, or they might think that may be enough, but feeling somewhat lonely, isolated. And yet there is a connection through the Zen Center to all of the Zen centers, basically, in the United States and Japan and throughout the world, really. This is a Buddha, specifically Buddha center, so there's certain things that we ethical guidelines that we take seriously as Buddhists. Yeah. So I would just add to that, we grow when we learn. We grow. Everybody wants to. We grow both intellectually with our head, as well as with our heart. We wish to grow with our heart. We wish to grow our compassion. It's not simply enough to get information. I mean, right? Anybody can get information these days. It's so dreadfully simple. A teacher is there, I think, to help us grow both intellectually and heart-wise. We need to see a real flesh and blood human being there for that. And this is not something you can get easily from a book or from a computer. And heart growth opportunities are rare. I feel like they're rarer and rarer. These are the ability to grow in your heart's wisdom as opposed to your head's wisdom. We yearn both for compassion to have for ourself, as well as yearning to be compassionate to others. I think we really want to learn how to do that. And we find ourselves stuck at times. Like, I hate this person. We might feel that way. I hate this person before me. And I don't want to feel that way. That's why we hate them. We don't hate them, we hate ourselves because we don't want to feel the way we feel. And we know we can learn here. It's not about hating, it's about learning to grow, to be more compassionate towards others. That's it. It's another way to think about the ABCs, creating a bigger container for people that we don't necessarily like or agree with. Right? And we desire to learn whether we are 2 years old, and you can really see it in an infant, and we desire to learn when we're 72 as well. That desire never leaves us, although we might convince ourselves. We might know people, we all know people that have maybe convinced themselves that they've got it all. And especially as we get older, it's a kind of a protective mechanism that we have. But this desire to learn is what we call beginner's mind. And it's something we need to never forget, this beginner's mind. It's not that we need to get it, but we need to not forget that we have it. That's key about our practice, is that beginner's mind. And the role of the teacher is to help us to return, I think, to our own beginner's mind, to open that up again, because it gets crusted over in a very short period of time if you don't have that access to teachers. The master said, having studied, to then repeatedly apply what you have learned. Is this not a source of pleasure? Do you know who said that? Really important teacher. Who said that? This teacher often goes overlooked in the United States in Zen circles, and I feel a kind of duty to bring him back into the fold. His name is Confucius. Right? And this is the first thing in the Analects of Confucius. It's the first thing he says. And we study that the first thing that Dogen says in any of his writings is usually the most important thing. And I would extend that to Confucius as well. He's much older than Dogen. And really, we've got to pay attention to that. So, I like how he says, is this not to learn? Is this not a source of pleasure? Right? In the end, don't we all just want to be happy? Isn't that why else would we be here if we didn't want to be happier? Do we want to just go around suffering all the time? That's not. The Buddha taught that there is suffering and there's an end to suffering. So one of those ways to the end is through learning. All right. So lastly, how do we find a successor? And again, you all are doing the work, and I'm really grateful to you for doing this. You deserve the finest of teachers, absolutely. And you have the finest of teacher at present. But there'll come a point when you find that teacher, and you can let go of the searching and just let that happen. There'll come a point. You're doing the work now. It's going to happen. The teacher will appear. And when that time comes, you might find inspiration from this Taoist story. Here. Yao wanted to, and forgive me if my pronunciation is wrong with these Chinese names. Yao wanted to cede the empire to Shu Yu. When the sun, and it's a quote from Yao, when the sun and moon have already come out, he said, it's a waste of light to go on burning the torches, isn't it? When the seasonal rains are falling, it's a waste of water to go on irrigating the fields. If you took the throne, the world would be well ordered. I go on occupying it, but all I can see are my failings. I beg to turn the world over to you. This is in the case of an empire, an emperor turning over his kingdom. In the Zen world, this is our empire right here, and it's no different from that, really. I don't know. What do you think? This is you have your empress right here. Well, Shu Yu, the one who is this emperor is trying to turn this over, said, "You govern the world, and the world is already well governed. You govern the world, and the world is already well governed." Is that okay? So this my point is that not the case here, too, at the Zen Center? You have somebody governing this Zen Center, but isn't it already well governed? Right? Are you not well governed without someone central to lead? The best situation from the Taoist perspective is when the emperor is present, but not too much in your face. And so you are already well ordered as you are. Okay, going back to the story. Now, if I take your place, will I be doing it for a name? But name is only the guest of reality. Will I be doing it so I can play the part of the guest? He's asking this question. So, one interpretation is, what is the teacher's motivation? What is this new emperor? What is their motivation? Well, and in this story, he's questioning his own motivations. Is he motivated by power? Well, teachers need to be able to question their motivations. We have lots of terrible examples of folks who take leadership roles that are motivated by the acquisition of power and wanting to wield it. That's terrible. That's the worst kind of thing. We don't need that in the Zen Center. Absolutely not. Okay, back to the story. When the tailor bird builds her nest in the deep wood, she uses no more than one branch. When the mole drinks at the river, he takes no more than a bellyful. So, knowing sufficiency is the path. That's our path, knowing sufficiency. Not taking more than you are given, being a wise steward of your resources. This is an important quality of a teacher. And I love watching the way that Zuiko and the Sangha here takes care of the dishes and the compost. It's beautiful. So here's the water. Wash the dishes, put it in, dry it. That's very, it's an example of not taking more than you need. And we really need examples of that here too. I mean, in this country, we have it right here. We need to. It's beautiful. I mean, look at this yard. I came in, I was like, oh wow, there's all of these flowers and greens popping up all over the place because you've been taking such excellent care of the property. You're aware of your resources. You're aware of what can be done. You don't have just like this monoculture lawn. That's okay. You got lots of diversity here. All right. So back to the story. Go home and forget the matter, my lord. I have no use for the rulership of the world. I'd like to meet the person who can say that, right? This is somebody who's truly a leader, to have no use for being a leader. Though the cook may not run his kitchen properly, the priest and the impersonator of the dead at the sacrifice do not leap over the wine casks and sacrificial stands and go to take his place. I don't know about this last line, but being eager for power, I think, is common in our world today. And the Zen Center is a place to question our motivations. All of us, not just the teacher, but all of us. And find contentment with what we have and who we are, not take more than we need, and to love what's been left to us when all is done. Thank you. Yes,
was going to ask if there are questions
Yeah,
that
please.
people have. Before we
Yeah, welcome. I welcome any thoughts, questions, comments. Please, now's the time. Good time for it. Anything is fine. Yeah, please.
How many teacher changes have you been through?
Oh gosh. Well, in my own sangha, yeah, we had a lot of difficulty there with that particular transition. Yeah, and it's still not quite. I think. Well, yeah, I'm not sure it's quite resolved. Yeah. And I have asked other sanghas, other teachers about how their transitions have been going, and so I don't have that first-hand experience other than my own. But what I've heard from other folks, other teachers, there's been a variety of ways that it's gone. Many have not been very smooth. Yeah. There, especially when, well, in one case, like if there's multiple Dharma students or priest students, there might be some rivalry there for that. Oftentimes, there's a reluctance by the teacher to actually step out of the role, which is, I think, one of the most common issues. And that's why I say that, the fact that you all are actually preparing that right now is pretty. I think that's safeguarding against that. But I think that one thing is probably one of the biggest issues that sanghas across the country are facing. This reluctance to actually step down, and it makes it really difficult for the next teacher to step up. Merit extend universally to all, so that we, together with all beings, realize the Buddha way. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow